Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to ask you all a question. Imagine, try to put yourself in this position. You're in a burning building, we're surrounded by colleagues. It's a sudden fire. Everything is completely unexpected. The room is full of smoke. You have to figure out a way to get out of this building. And by the way, you're also 800 feet in the air on the 78th floor of the World Trade Center Tower 1. Our guest today, Michael Hingson, won't be able to join us because of unforeseen circumstances. He's going to be rescheduled for a future program. Oh, wait a minute. I think we have him. And that is definitely good news. I mean, I wanted to talk. The reason why I'm excited about having Mike on the call, on the show today, is because not just about 9/11, which is what most of us talk about all the time and what we all remember, but about the lessons we learned from that. So before we bring out Mike, let's bring out Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, the founder of The Feast, as it were.
Thank you, Al. It's terrific to be here. And yeah, I know that you are a native New Yorker and you have a lot of experience with that 9/11 and the aftermath. And you've also been in broadcasting for how many years now?
I'd rather not say, but let's say long enough to remember from the Rockefeller Center perspective, what 9/11 was like and what was going on those frantic, crazy weeks in the very beginning. It was a horrific experience for me. And, you know, I didn't mention it, I don't think, in the run-up, but you're on the 78th floor of World Trade Center 1. You're surrounded by colleagues who don't know what to do. You've got to find a way out of this building. And you're blind. I don't know that I mentioned that, but Michael Hingson can't see. And somehow in the middle of all that, he was able to guide he had help with from his guide dog. And that's why bringing Michael out, I think, is going to make for a very interesting story this morning.
Absolutely. And it lends into our title, which is Fear is a Business Risk, What Leaders Can Learn from Surviving the Unthinkable. And obviously 9/11 was the unthinkable.
Still is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's bring him out.
All right, let's bring Michael out. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Where in the world are you today?
In the world. I am in Southern California.
Okay, phenomenal. I think you and I have met previously in another show, so thanks for coming back.
Glad to be here.
It's good to be with you, Michael. Maybe we could start at the beginning. It's a personal story for a whole bunch of people, me included. But for you, it's an extremely personal story. What brought you to the World Trade Center that day? And explain to us what happened.
Well, you also talked about how long you've been around and dealing with New York and Rockefeller Center. I remember Hurley's Saloon in Rockefeller Center, and now they had to move because their lease went up. But okay. Anyway, memories. I worked there. So what you need to understand, and one of the lessons that I talk about when I speak, and I travel the world speaking publicly about the World Trade Center, lessons we should learn from that, learning about leadership and trust and so on. But one of the lessons that I talk about is any of us at any time might find ourselves in an unexpected and an urgent and potentially a horrible situation. And for me, I had been hired to open an office in New York City for a company, and I did it in late 1999 or early in 2000 by the time it all got done. And the office ended up being on the 78th floor of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. So I was there because that was where my job was. I was the Mid Atlantic region sales manager for a computer company. And one of the things that I knew that I had to do, because I was the leader of that office, is I had to be able to do whatever any leader of an office should do. And that included knowing where things were, knowing how emergencies were addressed, and so on. But the difference between me and other people is I didn't have the, I guess some people would consider it luxury, and I don't, luxury of reading signs, of getting information from what's written on walls, and so on. So for me, I actually had to know it. And because of that, and because of what happened on September 11th, I point out to people everyone should know things like, what do you do in an emergency? Where are all of the emergency exits, not just the visible ones, but any others that might be available? If there's an emergency, what's going to happen? What are you supposed to do? What are your responsibilities? And for me, I learned all of that. And the result was that on September 11th, a mindset kicked in. Now, yes, I had my guide dog, Roselle, with me, but let me point out what a guide dog does and what a guide dog does not do. Guide dogs do not lead blind people around. It wasn't Roselle's job to know where the emergency exits were and how to get to them. Roselle's job is to make sure that we walk safely as we're walking. So if we come to a place where there's a drop off or something, she's going to stop. If there's a door, she's going to stop so I can open the door and go through. But I'm the one that needs to know where to go and how to get there. How do I do that? Really the same way you do, except I may use different techniques. But the bottom line is I learned what I needed to know, and that caused a mindset to kick in. Now, as we were going down the stairs to get out of the building, I was constantly encouraging Roselle, good girl, what a good dog, because I knew she had to sense the fear that everybody was exhibiting. And I needed to keep her focused so that she would do her part of the job. You see, we work as a team in every sense of the word. It's a very close knit team. And so for me, making sure that that team worked well was extremely important. And so as we went down the stairs, I made sure that we were both doing well. I encouraged her, and she felt comfortable because of that, because she sensed that I was feeling comfortable. So I hope that helps.
Al, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
There he
I
is.
want to explore the certainly the physical aspect of what it's like to evacuate a building. I want to remind everybody, by the way, that you are blind, Mike, and
Right.
you can't see, and you've never been able to see. You were born that way, and so
But the problem is people think blindness is the difficulty. They think if you're blind, you can't do stuff. And that's been the way it is for years. The Gallup polling organization for years, when they conducted surveys of people's fears, found that blindness was one of the top 5 fears, not even disability, but blindness, because we emphasize eyesight so much. The reality is, yeah, it's great if you can see, but the fact of the matter is not everyone can. It doesn't make me less than you just because I don't see. I may do things in a different way. In fact, technology has now been developed, and I don't mean an autonomous vehicle, but technology has been developed that allows a blind person literally to drive a car. It's not ready for prime time on the streets totally yet, but it exists. The reason a blind person can't drive a car today isn't that they can't see, it's that they don't get the information necessary to be able to drive a car. But that's changing because technology is evolving.
Well, on that day, and really our topic, as Dr. Jacalyn published it, is how to overcome fear. I want to kind of make a point. I am in the team development business. That's what I do for a living. And there is a very well-known gentleman in that field by the name of Bruce Tuckman, who describes the process of forming a team as a series of stages: forming, storming, norming, and then finally performing. And he describes these steps as steps that you follow over potentially several weeks or even months.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've got minutes, which means you've got to skip over all those stages. You've got to get directly to the performing part. And which means you're surrounded by people that you work with. And somehow in a very short period of time, you have to get them into the mindset of let's follow the blind guy. How did you do that?
Well, so first of all, in fact, my colleagues, the people who worked for me, were not in the building that day because they were out doing their jobs. We were going to be holding some sales meetings to teach other people how to sell our products. But what you say is very true. On the other hand, mostly those people were not strangers. And so, in a sense, forming the team had begun long before then, like working with my guide dog. I believe it takes a good year to develop a true teaming relationship between a guide dog and its handler. But the fact of the matter is that at any time, um, I'm always working to form a team. But you're right. There wasn't really a lot of time. In fact, my colleague David Frank, who was from our corporate office in California, who was in the building with me that day, after the building was hit and it tipped and it moved back, David looked out the window and started shouting, "Oh my God, Mike, there's fire and smoke above us. We got to get out of here right now." And I kept saying, "Slow down," because immediately my mindset had kicked in as to what I needed to do in order to get out. And I kept telling David, "Slow down." And he kept saying, "No, we got to get out of here. There's fire and smoke and we can't stay here." And then he used what I love to call the big line: "You don't understand. You can't see it." Well, the reality is I didn't need to see it because he was telling me. So I knew what David was seeing already. The problem wasn't what I was seeing. It was what David wasn't seeing, which was a dog sitting next to me, wagging her tail, yawning, going, "Who woke me up? I was sleeping real good over here, sports fans, and somebody woke me up." And the reality is that I finally did get David to focus. And I said, "David, get our guests to the stairs. Don't let them take elevators." And I said it in a very confident voice, but I said, "Don't let them take elevators. You've seen fire that could get into the elevator cars, and that might kill people." Well, it did. Of course, none of us knew what had happened. People say to me all the time, "Well, you didn't know because you couldn't see it." Excuse me, Superman and X-ray vision are fictitious, and it would be difficult to see through roughly 18 floors of concrete, steel, and rebar anyway, especially also to the other side of the building. No one knew. As we were going down the stairs, no one knew what was going on. We figured out an airplane hit the building because I smelled burning jet fuel, and I took me a couple of floors to realize it. But when I realized it, I observed to other people, "I'm smelling burning jet fuel." And they said, "Yeah, we were trying to figure out what that is. We must have been hit by an airplane," but that's all we knew. But the fact of the matter is that since I was encouraging Roselle and speaking calmly to Roselle all the way down, I know people followed me because of that. And I know that because later I met some of those people who came into the stairwells as we were going down, and they said, "I heard you speaking to your dog and you were sounding calm. We're going to follow you." And so the performing, in a sense, happened very quickly because people were looking for something to focus on. Now, I mentioned David, and I want to talk about David again for a second. When David and I went to the stairs and we started down, we got to about the 50th floor, and suddenly he said, "Mike, we're going to die. We're not going to make it out of here." Well, um, I have a secondary teaching credential, and I love to tease audiences and say I took that secret course that teachers are taught, but they never are supposed to divulge it to people, and that is how to yell at students. And what I did was I yelled at David and literally, very deliberately said, "Stop it, David. If Roselle and I can go down these stairs, so can you." And he told me that brought him out of his funk. And what he did, though, was to say, "I want to walk a floor below you and tell you what I see. Is that okay?" He said, "I got to get my mind off of what I'm thinking." And I said, "That's fine." So as we went down the stairs, he said, for example, "Hey, Mike, I'm on the 44th floor. This is where the Port Authority cafeteria is, not stopping, going on down." The reality is what David did by shouting up to me and keeping his mind focused because of that, he was giving guidance to anyone within the sound of his voice who could hear him saying, "Hey, Mike, 43rd floor, all's good here." People heard a calm person talking to someone saying, "I'm okay." David had to help also keep thousands of people from panicking simply because of the fact that he was shouting up to me. The reality is teamwork, um, occurred in so many ways. It was so cool to see all of that happening. Um, so you're right. A lot of ways we had to jump right to the performing part, but people were looking for ways to be able to focus, and so we helped.
Well, and there are so many lessons in what you just described, day-to-day lessons in what you just described. If you had the opportunity, what would this have done to your career? I know and we'll talk about this in a bit, your career went a completely different direction after 9/11, and admirably so. But let's say you were along for the ride and not necessarily the leader on this. And let's say that you were early in your career and you had this experience. What lesson would you take back to your workplace, to your regular life, after you'd been through something like this?
I'm sure I would have had to process it some, but I would say developing better teamwork, better development of levels of trust. What September 11th did for me was to validate views that I already had about my own life, my own self-worth, and what I could do. It didn't really change a lot in a sense, but it validated because I had been brought up to believe I could do whatever I chose to do with my life. When it was discovered that I was blind at 4 months of age, the doctors told my parents to send me off to a home because no blind child could ever grow up to amount to be anything or do anything in society, and I would just be a drain on my family. And my parents said, "You're absolutely wrong. He can grow up to do whatever he wants, and we're going to show him how, and we're going to help him get the confidence to do that," which they did. And so I believed that blindness wasn't the problem. It was really societal attitudes, and that blindness wasn't what was going to define me. It was going to be how I lived, how I performed, and functioned in life. But September 11th really affirmed that and demonstrated it in so many ways. Because even if I were early in my career, I knew enough to know that I needed to learn what to do in the case of emergencies and so on. And I needed to do whatever was necessary to be able to function. So I would have probably done a lot of the same things. But of course, wisdom also comes with age. And I learned a lot that helped on September 11th because I had a long time being in sales and sales management and working with people and developing teams and so on.
Wow, that's impressive. Dr. Jacalyn, I know we have to take a break at some point. I guess we have a commercial coming up.
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
But I'd love to hear how you're reacting to all this, maybe when we come back on the other side of that break.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break and we're going to hear from our friend and colleague, Mr. Red O'Loughlin, who's written another stellar book. This one is called Aging Sucks. Let's take a look.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Loughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
Welcome back, everybody, to this remarkable episode of Ahead for Business, where, in every episode of Ahead for Business, we try to capture the essence of the mindset that it takes to succeed in different circumstances. And we're privileged today to have a very special guest by the name of Mike Hingson, who is not just a survivor, but an emerging leader in surviving the September 11th attacks, which now incredibly 25 years ago, although in many respects it feels like yesterday. So, Michael, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you a question about September 12th. You've been through this experience, and now it's a new day for you. I mean, a new day in many ways. First of all, you're alive. Didn't expect to be. Second of all, you've had this experience. So what changed for you on September 12th?
Well, I got down to breakfast that morning, was stiff as a board. I am so glad that we had an elevator in our house. My wife always was in a wheelchair. And so when we moved to New Jersey, we built a home that was accessible for her, and that included an elevator. But for the week after September 11th, I probably used it more than she did because I was just as stiff as a board. She said, "You walk like an old man." But anyway, one of the things she said was that, you've gotten all your dogs from Guide Dogs for the Blind out in California. You should really call them and tell them that you're okay, especially since some of the people from there will remember that you were in the World Trade Center because they came to visit you there. So I called, and among other people, I spoke with Joanne Ritter, who was the public information officer and later the director of public information for Guide Dogs, and told her the story a little bit. And she said, do you mind if I write a short, brief story and put it out about what happened? And I wasn't thinking. So I said, sure, go ahead. And then she said, I'll bet you'll be on TV. What show do you want to be on first? Well, I just sort of flippantly said, because I wasn't thinking, right? That's okay. I flippantly said, Larry King Live. And on the 14th of September, on that Friday, I had the first of 5 interviews with Larry King. And we got to know each other pretty well. And actually, when I wrote my first book, which was a New York Times bestseller, Thunderdog, Larry wrote the foreword for the book. And I was very grateful that he did that. But for me, I guess that started the change. But again, as I said, mostly I felt that what happened on September 11th was a validation of what I believed. At the same time, one of the things that I started to hear was people beginning to say, we got to get back to normal. We can't just live like this. We got to get back to normal the way it used to be. And I always kind of reacted to that. And it took me months to realize why I reacted so vehemently and so negatively in my mind to that. And the reason was, as I learned it, normal was never going to be the same again. We needed to change our idea about normal because what happened. And in reality, we're always changing. Maybe that's normal, but the reality is that normal was never going to be the same again. And we couldn't get back to normal before September 11th, because if we did, then the same thing would happen again. So things did have to change. But I started to think about it. And then people started to call and say, we'd love to hire you to come and talk with us about what lessons we should learn from September 11th and beyond. And by the time the beginning of 2002 rolled around, we were getting so many of those kinds of requests, as well as getting a lot of interview requests from the media, that my wife and I decided that selling life and philosophy was a whole lot more fun and rewarding than being a computer hardware sales manager and selling computer hardware. So I switched to public speaking full time, and I've been doing it ever since, traveling, talking about teamwork, talking about trust, using the World Trade Center story as a guide. But my talks are not just about trying to inspire people and motivate people by telling my story. It's also talking about these lessons of leadership and trust and teamwork, teaching businesses how to form better teams, teaching organizations how to work better and develop a better mindset and become more emergency prepared, and teaching people to do the things that they need to do in order to survive, so that if something happens and they're in a situation like I was, they can survive it, because you can. I mean, the building could have fallen down on me and then I wouldn't be here. But short of that, it's a matter of really knowing, not relying on signs or other things. I believe it is true. Knowledge is power.
Dr. Jacalyn, there is so much here to digest. You have found a terrific guest today, as you always do. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you for that comment. And it's nice to have you back again, as I mentioned, Michael. One of the things that I want to tap into is you have shared a story about what must have been a completely horrific experience, unimaginable. And in everyday life, people don't take action because they're paralyzed by fear. and yet you were in a situation where action was required. So I kind of want to look at both of those scenarios, because as business leaders, action needs to be taken. And I've been attending the Wharton School of Business Executive Leadership Program, and we just talked about this actually the other day, which is that now inaction is a decision that people respect. So you can't make a decision, so you decide there is no decision because you are afraid of the risks and the outcome. What are your thoughts about that?
I hear what you're saying, and I agree. Again, I think that knowledge is power. I'm not going to say I wasn't afraid on September 11th, but what happened was, because I had learned what to do, and I had learned how the building behaved, I learned what the fire department would do in the case of an emergency. Um, all of that for me helped me control fear. And that's why I wrote my latest book, Live Like a Guide Dog. It's lessons that I've learned from all of my dogs, and mostly about things like controlling fear. The reality is that I'm not going to tell people don't be afraid, but I am going to tell people you absolutely can learn to control fear. And that's what I did on September 11th, because I knew what to do. Also, it happens um, more often than maybe one would like. I've been in places, for example, where I've gotten lost when I thought I knew my way around, and I have learned that I have to stop, think about it, go back, analyze what I did, figure out where I made a wrong turn, and fix it. And the fact of the matter is that you can learn all of those things. You can learn to control that fear. One of the biggest things that people do constantly is, what if everything to death? Well, what if this happens? What am I going to do? What if that happens? What am I going to do? And the reality is, over 95% of the what ifs that we do in our lives aren't going to ever happen. And more important than that, whether they do or not, we don't have any control over them. We don't have control over what our politicians do or don't do, unless we talk about the specific time for elections. That's a different story. But the bottom line is, we what if everything to death. And that causes us to become so afraid, because we fear all these things that could happen, and we don't have any control over them anyway. If we would focus strictly on the things over which we truly have control, that would be a much better world for us. We would have a much better life, and we would be a lot less fearful. And we can learn to do that.
Very true. I just want to add on a personal note that my dad and I had this list of all the things that we thought potentially could happen to us individually. And we put them down on the list because none of those things were going to happen, and they didn't.
Funny.
Yeah. Well, and,
That's funny.
that's really the point. The bottom line is that we fear so many things, and we don't have any control over them. And we don't work at trying to do that. In my book, I talk about one of the best things people could do is, when you're going to sleep at night, stop and think about what happened during the day, what worked, what didn't work. When it didn't work, why didn't it work? What was I afraid of? And listen to that inner voice that you have inside of you. It will guide you every time. It's monitoring everything that you do, that your subconscious, or whatever you want to call it, God or whatever, is there and is available to you, and will keep you focused and doing the right things if you let it. But you have to really work at practicing to develop that skill, to be able to stop and say, why didn't this work today? I've learned over the years, I used to, when I still record a lot of my speeches, and I used to say I'm my own worst critic. And I've learned, wrong thing to say. It's a very negative thing. And as somebody taught me within the last couple of years, nobody can teach me anything except me. They can give me information, but I'm the one that truly has to teach myself. And I've changed from my own worst critic to I'm my own best teacher. See how much more positive that is?
Right.
I'm my own best teacher, and I will learn from what I can. I think that's so important.
Hey, Mike, in a few minutes, we'll be asking you how people can reach you. Before we do that, though, I want you to explain why they should reach out to you. I know you're a keynote speaker, an event speaker. What do you cover in those keynotes, in those speeches?
One of the things I do is I customize every talk. So it depends a little bit on what the event sponsors want, but I talk about teamwork. I talk about trust. Yes, I do tell the story, but I tell my World Trade Center story in the parlance and the guidance of talking about teamwork, talking about trust, talking about resilience, business continuity. Um, Sometimes I talk about inclusion when the opportunity is there, because all my diversity friends tell me that disability, since they don't talk about disability, they say it's disability is really just a social justice thing. Well, no, it's not. It's a minority. And so I talk about inclusion because you can't be inclusive unless you include people with disabilities. So I talk about all of those things depending on what the event sponsors would like me to deal with. And sometimes I adjust talks right up until the time I start giving them. And even after I start, if I feel that I'm not really reaching an audience, I will do what I need to do to get the audience and me to connect. So one of the things I tell people, they ask me usually, do you want to send us your slide deck? And I say, I don't use slides. I found that if people listen to me, they'll learn a lot more than if I'm focusing on just giving them a bunch of slides, because then they focus on the slides and they don't focus on the speaker. There's a lesson for a lot of people. Don't use slides so much. If you're going to speak, speak.
Just talk.
I love that.
I love that one a lot. I mean, I can tell just by listening to you today, Mike, that you are terrific on stage. And I'm hoping people out there who are watching the program and listening to you get the point that they should reach out to you for their next event, because
I hope they will.
You'll be at the start of the show. Also, maybe you can tell real quick, Thunderdog. What's that about? Thunderdog
is my story of being blind, meeting various guide dogs, and especially meeting with Roselle. Every chapter starts with something that happened on September 11th. Then we transition back to things in my life that I learned that helped me deal with that particular event. And then at the end of every chapter, we go back to September 11th and finish up whatever event we're talking about. But it's about the World Trade Center. It's about me. It's about blindness. It's about Roselle, and trying to teach people that in reality, blindness isn't the problem. It's what we view about it that tends to be the bigger problem. And we can get over that if we choose to do it, and recognize that, in fact, every person on the planet has a disability. For most of you, your disability is covered up a lot because Thomas Edison and others invented the electric light bulb. And so now you're so used to getting light on demand. But when suddenly the power goes out and you don't have light and you don't have a smartphone or a flashlight nearby, who's got the disability, sports fans? The reality is you do, because you're light dependent. Light dependence is as much a disability as being light independent. And we shouldn't knock somebody just because they're different than we are and we think they're less than they are than we are, because in reality, no one is less than anyone else. We have different skills, but we all can learn from each other, and we should use that opportunity to learn as we can. And those are things I talk about.
Very well said. I do have a question for you before we close out, Mike, which is, how was Roselle impacted in terms of Roselle's behavior after going through all this?
That gets back to Live Like a Guide Dog in my book. The next day, I contacted the veterinarians at Guide Dogs, and I said, how do you think this is going to affect Roselle? And they said, did anything really affect her directly? And I said, no, nothing really did. Nothing attacked her or anything like that. And they said, there you go. Because see, when I got home, the first thing I did is I took off her harness and I was going to take her out. But before I could get her out, she ran off, grabbed her favorite tugboat, and started playing tug of war with my retired guide dog, Linny. The fact of the matter is, nothing affected her directly. Dogs don't do what if. Remember that again? Dogs live in the moment. And that's exactly what she did. So she was fine. And did really well. She did contract a disease called immune-mediated thrombocytopenia, which is a disease where the immune system attacks the blood cells. And we were able to control it for a while, but she eventually passed in June of 2011. So she had a good long life. But the reality is that she did fine. Nothing really affected her from the World Trade Center. And when it was over, it was over. We can learn from that.
There's a lot to be said for that.
It is a great story. Absolutely a great story. Mike, how do people reach you? What's the best way to get a hold of Mike, to book him as a speaker or just get to know him better?
Easy. One is my website, www.michaelhingson.com. That's MichaelHingson.com. They're welcome to email me at speaker, SPEAKER, at michaelhingson.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I use that probably more than any other social media. People can send me messages there and connect. Would love to talk to people. Would love to speak at their events. We've traveled all over the world, and have a lot of fun doing it. And I always get to meet new people and make new friends, and can't do better than that.
Michael, during the show, we've been sharing the links to your books, to your website, your email, your LinkedIn, your Facebook. So just so everybody knows, the information is out there. And this is an opportunity. Once again, you've been invited to contact Mike. He'd like to hear from you. So if you don't take that action, you're going to be on that what if list. What if I had contacted him?
Ooh, there you go.
Mike, thank you very much. You've been a terrific guest. I do want to say I have relatives out in California, and I know what happens in California. I do know that if I'm ever in California and anything bad happens, I'm coming for you, buddy.
Only if I'm not speaking somewhere.
Okay. Well, Mike, listen, it was great having you.
It was an honor. It was my pleasure to be here. I'd love to do it any old time.
Thank you again. We'll definitely have you back.
We'll get you back for sure. Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Bye for now.
What do you think?
One of my main takeaways from what he shared is we as humans have so many excuses. I can't do because of this. I can't. And usually it falls into a category of my least favorite word, which is a 4-letter word of busy. I'm so busy. I can't do this and I can't do that. Here's a gentleman who changed his entire life around as a result of being part of 9/11. And so it's not just a heroic story in and of itself. It's a story that goes to show you there are no limitations except the ones that you decide are going to stand in your way.
You know, you're on the 78th floor of the World Trade Center and an airplane just hit you, and everybody says, we got to get out of the building. And you say, no, wait a minute, I'm working on this Excel spreadsheet. Let me just finish this up. I'm too busy. There are certain moments in life that completely negate the idea of being too busy, that being one of them. And I think, you know, your hidden lesson in all this, Dr. Jacalyn, is that people ought to learn to create those little emergencies in their head to knock themselves out of the too busy pattern that's keeping them from doing what they need to do. And, you know, and that came up a couple of times today. I mean, you think you know what you're here for. You think you're put here for a reason. That reason is in your head all the time. And then all of a sudden something like this happens and a new reason to be here presents itself. Do you take that opportunity? Do you miss that opportunity? You got to stay vigilant and you got to stay flexible. And I think if nothing else, we learned that from Mike today. It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I am motivated. I'm going to hit that gym hard today, and I'm going to continue creating and producing.
Yeah, I mean, if the internet goes down, that's nothing compared to what could happen. So
that's right.
What are you going to do? Well, listen, thank you, Dr. Jacalyn, for this opportunity. It was great. It's a very personal story to me because I think you mentioned I lived in New York at the time, and I have my own memories of that experience. Nothing like Mike's, but different. And I can't believe it's 25 years. I think when we say, let's not forget, what we really mean is we don't want to forget the lessons we learned from it, not just the events of the day, but what it was that changed us and taught us something about ourselves. We want to hang on to those lessons and develop them over time. And, you know, I think that makes it a turning point, not just a disaster. That's good stuff today. Thank you, Doc.
Well said. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'll let you close out the show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today on this particular episode of Ahead for Business. I really enjoyed our conversation with Michael. I hope that if you're out there watching a program like this and you're thinking about staging an event and you're looking for a motivational speaker, somebody who's been there and done that, I think Mike is a guy you want to reach out to. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you again next Thursday for, ProFit for Teams. We did talk a little bit about this. I mean, Bruce Tuckman did identify those stages of team development. Our job with ProFit for Teams is to take the forming, storming, and norming phases and collapse them into a matter of minutes. Most teams, especially these days, don't have the time it takes to become socially comfortable with each other. Most teams need to establish that trust that Michael talked about and to become collaborative with each other very quickly in order to get done what needs to be done, especially in a world that changes as quickly as ours does. That's what we do with ProFit for Teams. I can be reached at 212-480-3730 if you would like to talk about that. And you could email me at al@pro-fit4teams.com to learn more. And thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you again next Thursday.
Every day, we wake up knowing what we should do. We know we should take better care of ourselves. We know we should have the difficult conversation. We know we should stop making excuses. We know we should invest in our future. We also know we should take the first step. So why don't we? It's not because we aren't smart enough. It's not because we don't have enough information. And it's certainly not because we don't care. We live in a world overflowing with knowledge. Books, podcasts, videos, courses, experts, even artificial intelligence. We have more access to information than any generation before us. Yet so many of us are still waiting for the right time, waiting to feel ready, waiting until tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week becomes next year, and before you know it, another opportunity has passed us by. The truth is, knowing has never been the finish line. It's only the starting line. Our lives don't change because we know more. Our businesses don't grow because we know more. Our relationships don't improve because we know more. And our health doesn't transform because we know more. Everything changes when we act. When we choose courage over comfort, progress over perfection, action over intention. The question isn't, what else do we need to know? The question is, what are we going to do with what we already know? Stop. Why Knowing Isn't Enough by Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Because knowing opens the door. Action changes your life. Available September 2026.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram-Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram-Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.